Hi, grade 5, more front desk. I clutched the book tightly with both hands and I walked back to class, passing Lupe on the way to my seat. I slid into my seat and glanced over at her. She arched her eyebrows. "What's up?" And I shrugged my shoulders. "Nothing much." "All right, kids, listen up," said Mrs. Douglas. "Today, we're going to learn about China." A boy behind me raised his hands. "Yes, Stuart." "Is China in Japan?" asked Stuart. Jason turned around and glared at him. "No, idiot. It's not in Japan." Stuart shriveled in his seat. "Well, where's China then?" he asked. "In China," Jason said. "Oh." Mrs. Douglas told Jason and Stuart both to hush, and she started talking about the imperial area and the Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. She showed us a picture of him. I don't know where Mrs. Douglas got her pictures from, but in this picture, Qin Shi Huang's eyes were ridiculously slanted. His eyebrows went all the way up to his forehead. The kids in the front row couldn't stop cracking up. Every time Mrs. Douglas wrote something on the board, they'd turn around and make slanted eyes at me and Jason. This prompted Jason to raise his hand. "Excuse me, Mrs. Douglas," he said. "I'd just like to clarify. I'm not Chinese. I'm Taiwanese." "Oh, okay," Mrs. Douglas said. Stuart raised his hand again. "Is that in Japan?" "No, you moron," said Jason. "It's not in Japan either." As Mrs. Douglas reprimanded Jason for calling Stuart a moron, I sat very quietly in my seat. I knew I should have felt glad that Jason clarified to everyone that he was not the same as me, but I couldn't help but feel a little sad too, because now, when the kids in the first row turned around, they only made slanted eyes at me. Chapter 20. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time, holding the book from the library, the one with the essay contest printed out in it. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. Before I could open my mouth, my mother looked at my book and frowned. "Another new book," she said. "You should be spending more time doing math. Something you can actually get good at." And then she became all nostalgic. "You know, when I was your age, I used to eavesdrop on my brother's math lessons." Yeah. I didn't have time for this. "I'm not you, Mum," I exclaimed. The words came shooting out of my mouth and my mum flinched. "I'm sorry, I just mean, maybe I like something else." "Like what?" she said. She put her broom down and crossed her arms. I bit my lip. "Like writing. English writing," she said. Like it was the most preposterous thing in the world. Like I just said basket weaving. I nodded. "You heard Mr. Yo. You gotta be a native at English. And I'm sorry, but we're just not." Mr. Yo? Since when was he an expert on anything other than meanness? "You can, however, be native at math." "I don't want to be native at math." My mom frowned. "You're not getting it, are you?" she said. She sat down on the bed and she looked me in the eye. "You just can't be as good as the white kids in their own language, honey. It's their language." My gaze sank to the floor. As I dragged myself out of the room, my mother called after me, "Someday you'll thank me." She's wrong, I told myself. She was wrong to the power of infinity. I thought about picking up the phone to call Lupe, but instead I flipped on the TV. A rerun of The Simpsons was playing. I stared at Marge Simpson with her big hair and easygoing smile. Marge to me was like the perfect American mom, so warm and forgiving that even if Bart was setting the house on fire, she'd continue chatting with her sisters on the phone. "Maybe he just needs more love," she'd always say. Sometimes I wondered what it would be like to have an American mom just for the day. I could eat all the chocolate chip cookies I wanted because American moms on TV were always baking them, or making casseroles, or organizing birthday parties with themes. I'll tell you what they're not doing. They weren't pestering their kids to do more math. Whatever, I'll show her. She didn't even have to know about the essay contest. One day, it'll just be like, "Hey, can you pass the chopsticks? Oh, and by the way, I won a motel." Mr. Yo's car roared into the motel and interrupted my daydreaming. I flipped off the TV as he and Jason walked up to the front office. It's important, son, that you understand every part of the family business, Mr. Yo said to Jason as they stepped in. But I don't understand why we have to do this now, Jason protested. Do what now? I asked. Mr. Yo lifted up the front desk divider so that he and Jason could join me behind the desk. Today, Jason's going to do your job, Mr. Yo announced. He's going to check in customers. You've got to be kidding me. And we'll leave it at that. Have a great day. See you soon.